The moment you realize that most of what weighs on your mind is something you are holding onto voluntarily, something inside you pauses. Not in celebration, not in relief, but in recognition. As if the mind suddenly sees its own reflection for the first time. You begin to sense that your exhaustion is not caused by effort, but by resistance. That your suffering is not born from pain itself, but from the demand that pain should not exist. This is the quiet doorway into detachment, and it does not look dramatic. It looks honest. From childhood, you are trained to grip life tightly, to attach yourself to outcomes, to identities, to approval, to security. You are told that caring means holding on, that love means clinging, that success means never letting go. And slowly, without noticing, your mind becomes a collector of conditions. I will be calm when this happens. I will be happy when that changes. I will feel safe when I am certain. The Stoics saw this pattern clearly. They understood that the mind that postpones peace will never arrive there, because life never stops shifting. What makes detachment difficult is not its complexity, but its simplicity. The ego resists it because detachment exposes a painful truth that much of your inner struggle is self-maintained. Not consciously, not maliciously, but habitually. The mind keeps replaying the same attachments because they feel familiar. Even suffering becomes comfortable when it is known. To let go feels like stepping into emptiness, and the mind fears emptiness more than pain. But Stoic detachment is not emptiness. It is space. Space where reaction once lived. Space where anxiety once crowded every moment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself again and again that external things have no power over the soul unless the soul hands that power to them. This was not a mantra meant to suppress emotion, but a lens meant to clarify it. You feel disturbed not because something happened, but because your mind interpreted that event as a threat to something it refuses to release. Look closely at your daily frustrations. Beneath every irritation is an expectation. Beneath every resentment is an attachment. You wanted someone to behave differently. You wanted an outcome to arrive sooner. You wanted recognition that did not come. And when reality failed to comply, the mind tightened. This tightening is what you experience as stress, not the event, but the contraction around it. Detachment begins when you stop arguing with what is. Not because you agree with everything, but because resistance drains you more than acceptance ever could. Epictetus spoke of focusing only on what lies within your control and releasing concern for what does not. This sounds simple until you realize how much you have tied your identity to things you cannot command. Other people's opinions, the permanence of relationships, the certainty of the future. When these are threatened, the mind panics because it has mistaken them for pillars of stability. Alan Watts often spoke about the illusion of control, how the mind tries to secure itself by grasping at symbols of permanence in a world defined by change. You cling to labels, roles, plans, narratives. I am this kind of person. My life should look like this by now. These stories feel grounding, but they quietly imprison you. Detachment is not abandoning these stories violently. It is seeing through them gently. As you begin to loosen your grip, you may feel disoriented. The old motivations driven by fear and craving start to weaken. The urgency fades. And for a moment, you may wonder who you are without the constant pressure to protect, prove, and pursue. This moment is crucial. Many people retreat here, mistaking calm for emptiness. But if you stay, if you observe without fleeing, something deeper begins to emerge. The mind starts to rest in the present without needing it to be different. Not perfect, not permanent, just real. You notice sensations without labeling them as good or bad. You notice thoughts without obeying them. The noise does not disappear instantly, but it loses authority. It becomes weather instead of command. This is the first taste of freedom Stoicism points toward. Not the freedom to shape life exactly as you wish, but the freedom to remain inwardly unbound regardless of how life unfolds. You are still engaged, still active, still human, but no longer desperate, no longer enslaved by the illusion that your peace must be earned from the outside. This understanding does not arrive fully formed. It unfolds, slowly, quietly, and once it begins, it cannot be unseen. The next layer of detachment is subtler, almost invisible to the untrained mind. It is the detachment from the judgments that whirl endlessly in your consciousness. Every moment, the mind critiques, praises, fears, and desires. We are seldom aware that these judgments have taken control, that they define our sense of self more than any external reality. The Stoics taught that virtue is the only true good, and all else, wealth, status, approval, pleasure, is indifferent. Not because they lack value, but because they cannot govern your inner peace unless you surrender it. As you practice detachment, you begin to notice how much of your energy is spent on imagining what others think of you. The slight smile, the casual dismissal, the lack of recognition. Every flicker of social judgment has been hijacking your mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." There is no cruelty in this observation, only clarity. Your mind has been outsourcing authority to opinions that do not belong to it. Detachment restores ownership of your own judgment. You will also confront the illusions of permanence. Relationships, material possessions, career milestones, even health. These are all subject to change. The mind clings because it mistakes change for loss. It fears the evaporation of comfort as if the universe owes it continuity. In this stage, you see how futile it is to anchor identity in something inherently fleeting. Nothing outside of you can ensure security. The only true safeguard is the soul's sovereignty, the ability to remain steady regardless of circumstance. This detachment from outcomes does not mean inaction. On the contrary, you act with more clarity than before. Previously, action was tainted by anxiety, by hope, by fear of failure. Now each decision arises from reason and observation rather than attachment. You act because it is right, because it is necessary, because it aligns with your inner principles, not because the world must reward you. Your efforts become lighter, more fluid, and surprisingly more effective. The less you demand, the more life responds. Silence becomes a companion in this practice. You begin to witness thoughts without comment, emotions without judgment, events without overreaction. In the past, your mind tried to intervene in every story, to control, to correct, to plead. Now, you step back, you observe, you allow. This is the essence of freedom, to be present without needing the present to conform to your desires. The mind that once argued with reality now rests beside it. In solitude, this detachment deepens. Time alone with yourself exposes layers of fear and longing previously masked by distraction. It can feel uncomfortable, even painful. You confront who you are when stripped of expectation, praise, and obligation. But within this confrontation lies liberation. The Stoics believed that true mastery of the self comes from this fearless observation. Your mind begins to disentangle from external validation and habitual craving. Detachment also teaches a paradoxical engagement with life. You do not withdraw to escape, nor do you seek apathy. You participate fully, yet without desperation. You care without clinging. You love without possession. You work without being enslaved by outcome. Life flows through you rather than against you. You become like a tree rooted deeply but bending with every wind, strong, supple, unmoved at your core. Emotions still arise as they must, but their grip weakens. Anger, envy, grief, they visit, but you do not let them reside. You acknowledge their presence, let them teach and release. Each act of release strengthens the mind's resilience. Stoic wisdom is not denial. It is an unshakable anchoring in what truly matters. The character, the reasoned soul, the integrity of presence. As these practices accumulate, a profound stillness emerges. It is not numbness, nor a retreat from the world. It is the quiet certainty that your peace is not negotiable. No insult, no loss, no unfulfilled desire can penetrate it. Your mind becomes a fortress, not built from walls, but from clarity, reason, and self-possession. Within it, freedom blooms. Imagine for a moment that your mind is a vast, uncharted ocean, and all your attachments are ships tethered to its depths. Every desire, every expectation, every fear is a chain pulling you under. To detach is not to sink these ships violently, but to loosen the anchors one by one until the water beneath you is free and infinite. The first realization strikes like lightning: the world owes you nothing. Every insult, every slight, every disappointment is not an attack on your essence. It is the raw, indifferent flow of life. To cling to outcomes is to fight the current. To detach is to become the current itself, unyielding, inevitable, unstoppable. You begin to perceive the subtle prison of attachment. Most humans are bound not by physical chains, but by invisible ones: the need to be liked, the compulsion to own, the obsession with memory and future. You have carried these chains so long that you have forgotten they exist. But now, in this deliberate detachment, each chain reveals itself. Observe them, and the mind grows quiet. Observe them, and the chains weaken. Observe them, and freedom becomes tangible. Marcus Aurelius would call this a clearing of the mind so that reason may reign. A detachment is a rigorous teacher. It demands honesty with yourself that few dare. You must confront the illusions that have shaped your life: that power lies in wealth, that love lies in possession, that respect lies in obedience. All of these are shadows. True power, true love, true respect, These emerge only when the mind refuses to be manipulated by external forces. When your inner citadel is fortified by reason, no gust of envy, anger, or desire can breach it. To detach is to wield the ultimate sovereignty, the sovereignty over your own consciousness. In practice, detachment sharpens perception. Where once you saw only confusion, now clarity reigns. You notice how people project their insecurities onto others, how they tether their self-worth to the reactions of strangers, how society sells illusions of happiness that rot from the inside. You no longer buy into the illusions. You walk among them, not untouched, but untangled. You act, but you do not suffer. You love, but you do not possess. You speak, but you do not demand. Every interaction becomes a study in mastery. You are present, and yet you are free. Time itself becomes a teacher. The detachment from the temporal, the understanding that nothing lasts, is liberating. You realize that life is a series of ephemeral moments, each valuable only insofar as it cultivates wisdom and virtue. Pain and pleasure, gain and loss, praise and insult, all are temporary phenomena that pass like clouds across an eternal sky. The wise mind embraces this truth, and in doing so, transforms suffering into clarity, chaos into calm, and fleeting moments into eternal lessons. Detachment also transforms your relationship with desire. Desire, when unexamined, is a wildfire that consumes all reason. But when observed with a detached mind, it becomes a teacher. You see the illusion of control that desire imposes, and instead of following it blindly, you respond with reasoned action. The mind is no longer a servant to whims, it is a sovereign, deliberate, and unwavering presence. Pleasure is enjoyed without greed, necessity without panic, relationships without dependence. You are grounded in yourself, not in transient sources of validation. Even solitude becomes a sacred ally. Alone, without distraction, you confront the raw, unfiltered nature of your consciousness. It can be disorienting, even frightening. Old habits and hidden fears rise to the surface, demanding recognition. Yet in this confrontation lies profound growth. You see that the mind, once restless and enslaved by craving, can become still, luminous, and boundless. Detachment is not retreat, it is reclamation. The reclamation of your mind, your reason, and your freedom. The Stoic masters teach that this freedom is not a privilege, but a discipline. It is earned through repeated practice, through conscious decision, through the patient and unflinching observation of reality. Every moment of temptation resisted, every emotional surge observed and released, every attachment loosened is a brick in the fortress of the mind. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, and then with undeniable strength, the mind becomes invulnerable. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. And in this transformation, a quiet power emerges. It is a power that does not shout, does not demand, does not rely on others for validation. It is the power of the unmoved observer, the serene strategist, the conscious soul who has surrendered nothing to illusion. Life may still test, challenge, and provoke, but the detached mind is untouchable. You watch events unfold, but they no longer sway your inner calm. You move through the world like a force of nature, present, aware, free. Your freedom is a mirror to others. When you no longer react, when you no longer cling, when you embody stillness amidst chaos, people cannot help but notice. They sense your inner sovereignty. Some will envy it, others will misunderstand it, but none can diminish it. This is the subtle majesty of detachment. It does not seek power, it becomes power. It does not crave love, it emanates it. It does not chase respect, it commands it by simply existing in truth. And so, as you continue this journey, the mind, once restless and burdened, begins to feel weightless. Thoughts arise and pass like clouds, emotions visit and leave like the wind. You are neither enslaved nor cold, you are fully alive, fully aware, fully free. The world is as it is, indifferent, and yet you move through it with mastery. Detachment is not the absence of life. It is the presence of wisdom, clarity, and unshakable inner liberty. As the practice of detachment deepens, you begin to see the subtle architecture of life itself. Everything that once seemed chaotic and overwhelming reveals its patterns, its rhythms, its hidden order. The mind, untethered from the relentless pull of desires and fears, becomes like a clear pond, reflecting reality without distortion. Every event, every interaction, every fleeting thought is now observed with precision, without the need to grasp or resist. You are no longer a prisoner of circumstance, you are the silent witness, the deliberate actor, and the composed responder. In this state, relationships transform. You engage with others not from need, but from choice. You give without expectation, listen without judgment, and act without attachment. The chains of dependence, the subtle, suffocating need for approval, for reciprocation, for validation, dissolve. You begin to understand a profound Stoic truth. The world cannot harm the soul unless it is invited in by ignorance or desire. When you detach, you withdraw your consent to be controlled. People's opinions, their jealousy, their praise, and their criticism are like leaves floating past a riverbank. They pass by, leaving no trace on the depths below. Detachment sharpens the lens of self-awareness. Every impulse, every habitual reaction, every hidden motivation becomes visible. You confront the shadows of pride, anger, and fear with unwavering honesty. You see how easily the mind is swayed by imagined slights, how often you have surrendered your calm to the illusions of ego. But with each observation, with each choice to release, the mind's strength grows. It becomes like iron forged in fire, resilient, flexible, enduring. You are no longer tossed by the storms of circumstance because the foundation beneath you is immovable. The pursuit of detachment also redefines the meaning of desire and ambition. You learn to desire not for possession or recognition, but for growth, for virtue, for understanding. The external world no longer dictates your happiness. Pleasure becomes a companion, not a master, success a tool, not a tyrant. In this freedom you find an effortless power, the power to act decisively, to speak clearly, to remain unshaken. The mind, once a battlefield of cravings and fears, is now a calm citadel capable of holding any challenge without collapse. Time, too, takes on a new dimension. Past regrets no longer haunt, future anxieties no longer dominate. You exist fully in the present, seeing it as the only domain in which freedom and mastery are possible. Each moment becomes an opportunity to practice reason, to exercise virtue, to fortify the mind. The Stoic lesson is clear: life itself is neutral, neither good nor bad. It is your perception, your attachment or detachment that colors every experience. By letting go, you see life as it truly is, a flowing, indifferent, yet wondrous canvas upon which you can paint with clarity and purpose. Detachment is not isolation. It is a deep connection to reality without distortion. It allows empathy without enslavement, love without possession, engagement without suffering. You learn to participate in the world fully, yet with an inner armor that no misfortune can penetrate. The mind, liberated from obsession with outcome, moves like a master strategist, aware, calm, decisive. Challenges are met not with panic but with reason. Conflicts are resolved not with reaction but with understanding. The detached mind is a force of nature, quiet yet unstoppable. Every practice of detachment reinforces a subtle, profound truth: the power to be free lies entirely within. No wealth, no fame, no relationship can grant it. No external circumstance can take it away once earned. Freedom is not given, it is cultivated, moment by moment, choice by choice. The storms of the world may rage, but they no longer touch the calm at your center. Every setback, every betrayal, every loss becomes a teacher, a mirror reflecting the depth and resilience of your mind. And then you realize the ultimate liberation is the freedom to be yourself, fully and authentically, without fear of judgment, without clinging to approval, without entanglement in the endless web of expectation. The mind, once a prisoner of circumstance, is now sovereign. You move through life with grace, clarity, and unshakable calm. The world may challenge, provoke, and attempt to sway you, but the detached mind stands firm, like a lighthouse in a storm, unmoving, luminous, and infinitely free. The power of detachment is subtle yet transformative. It is not displayed, it is not demanded, it is simply embodied. In your quiet mastery, others sense it, even if they do not understand. They may try to manipulate, to provoke, to control, but they find no purchase. The detached mind is an invincible sanctuary, untouched by chaos, unshaken by turmoil, and unbound by the illusions of the transient world. This is the Stoic path: to observe, to release, to understand, to master. Detachment is not renunciation of life, it is the embrace of clarity, wisdom, and freedom. It is the awakening of the mind to its full potential, the discovery of an inner sanctuary that no circumstance can destroy. And in this freedom, in this serene sovereignty, life unfolds, not as a series of obstacles, but as an endless field of opportunity, each moment inviting the mind to act with precision, virtue, and unwavering calm. As your practice of detachment becomes more profound, a remarkable transformation takes place within. The mind, once restless and tethered to fleeting desires, now moves with a quiet certainty. You begin to notice the subtle pull of attachment, the way it distorts perception, amplifies fear, and dims clarity. Each moment of surrender to external approval, to envy, to resentment, now feels like a weight you willingly lay down. And in that laying down, in that deliberate release, the mind breathes freely, unburdened by the illusions that once held it captive. You come to understand that true power is inseparable from freedom. When you are free from attachment, From the need for recognition, from the compulsive reactions of ego, you gain an authority over yourself that no force outside can touch. Others may attempt to sway you with praise or criticism, with manipulation or charm, but the detached mind remains a fortress, solid, unyielding, imperturbable. Your responses are no longer impulsive, they are deliberate, measured, and guided by reason rather than desire. In this calm, every decision, every action, every thought is sharpened, precise, and aligned with the principles that govern your inner life. Detachment also refines your understanding of relationships. You begin to see others clearly, not through the fog of expectation or need. People reveal themselves in their true colors, and you respond with wisdom rather than entanglement. You engage fully yet remain free, giving care without losing yourself, offering attention without demanding reciprocity. The chains of dependence, subtle and often invisible, are replaced by a profound clarity of interaction. You relate to others as a participant in life, not as a captive of their moods, judgments, or whims. With detachment, suffering itself transforms. Pain, disappointment, betrayal, once unbearable, becomes a mirror reflecting the depth of your own understanding and the strength of your mind. Every challenge is no longer an assault on your peace, but an opportunity to practice virtue, patience, and composure. The Stoic truth reveals itself: suffering is not inflicted by external events, but by the mind's consent to be disturbed. Remove that consent, and suffering loses its grip. The world may still present trials, but they no longer define you. They no longer shake the sanctuary of your inner calm. The mind's focus sharpens in this state. Freed from distraction and craving, it penetrates reality with remarkable acuity. You see patterns where others see chaos, understand motivations that elude the untrained eye, and act with a clarity that seems almost effortless. The detached mind perceives not only the surface of things but the underlying principles that govern them. It recognizes impermanence, acknowledges the limits of control, and yet in that recognition discovers infinite freedom. You act where action is necessary and release where it is not, walking through life with both confidence and humility. Time itself becomes an ally. No longer fragmented by regrets about the past or anxieties about the future, each moment is seized fully, intentionally. You understand that life is a continuous present, and the only place where mastery can be exercised is here and now. Every thought, every action, every interaction is an opportunity to refine character, to cultivate resilience, to strengthen the sovereignty of the mind. The detached person experiences life not as a series of burdens, but as a landscape rich with lessons, possibilities, and the quiet satisfaction of conscious living. Detachment also illuminates desire. Freed from clinging to outcomes, recognition, or material gain, desire becomes disciplined. You no longer chase what is fleeting or illusory. Instead, you cultivate what is enduring: wisdom, virtue, clarity, and serenity. This reorientation transforms not only your inner life but your outward influence. People are drawn to the calm authority you embody, sensing a presence that is steady, unshakable, and wise. They may not articulate it, but they feel it, an aura of quiet power, born of detachment and mastery over self. As this internal freedom solidifies, you realize the ultimate Stoic revelation. The mind cannot be enslaved unless it allows itself to be. Freedom is not granted by circumstance, nor is it dependent on others. It is cultivated, nurtured, and exercised through conscious choice. Detachment is the tool, and the practice, the discipline. Through it, the mind transcends the limitations imposed by attachment, expectation, and ego. It stands as an unassailable citadel, resilient in the face of chaos, patient amid provocation, serene through loss, and luminous in the presence of uncertainty. In this space of detachment, the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. Every experience, whether joyful or painful, becomes a teacher. Every interaction a mirror. Every obstacle an opportunity to demonstrate inner sovereignty. The mind, liberated from its chains, navigates life with an elegance that is invisible yet unmistakable. It speaks not through words or demonstrations, but through the calm authority of presence, the clarity of thought, and the unwavering strength of a spirit that is wholly free. This is the art and power of detachment: to live fully, engage deeply, and remain sovereign within, regardless of the storms outside. To witness the world without being consumed by it. To act with precision, love without attachment, and exist with a calm authority that no circumstance can erode. And in that freedom, in that serene mastery, life becomes not something endured, but something profoundly and beautifully lived. As detachment deepens, the mind discovers a rhythm previously hidden, a cadence of thought and action untouched by turmoil or distraction. You begin to perceive life as a flow, a vast current in which events move as they will, indifferent to your desires or fears. In the past, you may have struggled against this current, clinging to outcomes, resisting change, or trying to control what was never yours to command. Now, you glide with the stream, not surrendering to passivity, but embracing a conscious harmony with what is. This is the essence of Stoic freedom, the understanding that control lies only within, and everything external is ephemeral, subject to its own laws. Every relationship, every engagement, every encounter is filtered through this lens of discernment. You interact with intention, aware of your own power and your own boundaries. No longer do you bend to the expectations of others, nor do you allow their judgments to shape your self-worth. Silence becomes your ally, observation your teacher, and measured response your weapon. In the stillness of detachment, you discover an authority over yourself that the world cannot challenge. The quiet mind, like a deep lake, reflects reality clearly without disturbance, revealing truths that the restless never see. Detachment also transforms desire into understanding. Where once you were ensnared by craving or fear, now you recognize the impermanence of all things. Pleasure, recognition, wealth, and even affection are understood as transient. They arrive, they linger, and they depart. To grasp them tightly is to invite suffering. To release them is to experience liberation. This shift does not diminish life's beauty, it enhances it. Freed from need, your appreciation for the fleeting moments becomes profound. You savor the present not through attachment, but through clarity and conscious attention, understanding that life's value is not in possession, but in perception. The mind trained in detachment sees through deception, both others and its own. It recognizes manipulation, flattery, and coercion without panic, perceiving them as transient forces with no power over the essence of self. Likewise, internal illusions, pride, anger, envy are exposed as clouds that obscure judgment but cannot touch the unshaken spirit. Each time a distraction or provocation arises, the detached mind meets it with calm awareness, observing without grasping, responding without reaction, and learning without surrender. Through this practice, life ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a laboratory for mastery. Time itself acquires a different texture. No longer fragmented by regret or anxiety, moments are seized fully, deliberately. Each sunrise is not merely the start of another day, but an opportunity to exercise wisdom, cultivate virtue, and refine the sovereignty of mind. Each interaction, each challenge, each decision becomes a canvas for excellence, painted with the deliberate strokes of a mind unburdened by fear or attachment. In detachment, patience is cultivated, not a passive waiting, but a conscious alignment with the rhythm of reality, trusting that what must occur will, and that your power lies in your response. Detachment, paradoxically, deepens connection with life itself. Freed from the tyranny of expectation, you engage with the world in a purer form. You give fully, not because you need, but because it is natural to do so. You listen deeply, not to satisfy curiosity or ego, but to understand. You act decisively, not to control outcomes, but to honor virtue. This presence, calm yet potent, radiates silently, influencing others not through coercion but through example. People sense the unshakable integrity and wisdom emanating from a mind unburdened by attachment, and they are drawn, not to your need, but to your presence. Even adversity, once a source of turmoil, becomes a mirror reflecting the depth of your practice. Challenges are no longer storms to resist, but tests to navigate with equanimity. You meet loss with comprehension rather than despair, criticism with reflection rather than defensiveness, betrayal with discernment rather than rage. In each trial, detachment teaches that suffering is not the blow itself, but the mind's response. To master response is to master life, and the detached mind moves through hardship with dignity, strength, and calm clarity. In this refined state, your inner world becomes your sanctuary. No external chaos, no clamor of opinion, no tempest of circumstance can breach the walls of self-possession you have built. Freedom is no longer an abstract ideal, but a lived reality, embodied in every thought, every gesture, every breath. Detachment is the practice, the discipline, and the reward, a mind so liberated that it navigates life with effortless authority, serene in victory, composed in loss, and ever awake to the truths that govern existence. This is the power of detachment: to see clearly, act intentionally, and live fully, untouched by the turbulence of the outer world. To cultivate a mind that cannot be enslaved, a spirit that cannot be swayed, and a presence that commands respect without demand. The practice is not a denial of life, but a mastery of it, a conscious surrender to what is, a disciplined engagement with what matters, and a luminous freedom that reveals the beauty and strength inherent in a mind untethered. As your mind deepens into detachment, you begin to perceive life through a clarity previously unimaginable. Each experience, each interaction, each fleeting emotion reveals itself as both transient and instructive. The world no longer dictates your inner state, instead your inner state shapes your perception of the world. This is the quiet revolution of the detached mind, an empire built not with possessions or influence, but with unshakable self-mastery. Freedom emerges not from the removal of circumstance, but from the refinement of perception. You learn to distinguish between what is yours to govern and what belongs to the currents of existence beyond your control. Events unfold with impartial inevitability, and your power is measured not in resistance, but in measured response. The detached mind acts like a skilled navigator upon turbulent seas, ever aware, ever steady, never thrown by waves that batter those who cling too tightly to illusion. In detachment, you realize that control is never external, it has always resided within. Your relationships transform as well. No longer tethered by need, fear, or expectation, you engage with others from a place of presence and understanding rather than desire or compulsion. Love becomes unpossessive, respect uncoerced, and influence a byproduct of integrity rather than manipulation. People feel your calm authority, drawn to it not out of obligation but admiration. Silence and patience become your most potent allies, an unspoken language of power that resonates deeper than words. In every interaction, the detached mind exercises discretion, allowing only that which serves virtue and wisdom to enter. Detachment also sharpens discernment. The superficial clamor of flattery, envy, and distraction fades into irrelevance, leaving only what is essential. You see motives clearly, intentions reveal themselves naturally, and manipulation loses its grip. Even your own thoughts are examined with precision, each judgment weighed against reason rather than impulse. Anger dissolves before it manifests, anxiety recedes before it arises, and the mind experiences a profound equilibrium that those untrained can scarcely imagine. Here the Stoic ideal is no longer theory but lived reality, the mastery of self above all else. Time and mortality acquire new texture under this lens. No longer squandered on trivialities, each moment is a field upon which the mind cultivates virtue. You embrace impermanence, understanding that attachment to people, outcomes, or possessions is a path to suffering. In their place, you nurture wisdom, courage, temperance, and presence. Each sunrise is a canvas for mindful action, each sunset a reflection on growth. Detachment does not diminish life, it intensifies it, imbuing every choice with clarity and every act with purpose. Adversity, once a source of frustration, becomes a mirror revealing the depth of your practice. Loss no longer destroys, insult no longer wounds, and betrayal no longer binds. Each challenge is a teacher, each setback a test of resolve, and each discomfort an opportunity to exercise mastery. The detached mind meets these trials not with resignation but with sovereignty, an unwavering presence that observes, assesses, and responds in accordance with virtue. Pain is understood as natural, suffering as optional, and peace as inevitable when the mind chooses freedom over reaction. This practice extends into the unseen, the subtle currents of life that govern thought, emotion, and energy. Desire is refined into appreciation, judgment into discernment, and ambition into purposeful action. You recognize that the outer world is largely indifferent, and in its indifference lies opportunity. Opportunity to act wisely, to respond with clarity, and to live in accordance with principles that cannot be shaken. Detachment is not emptiness, it is fullness experienced through liberation from what does not serve the highest self. In the silence that follows detachment, the mind discovers its true power. Thoughts become tools, emotions become guides, and actions become deliberate expressions of sovereignty. You inhabit a realm where nothing external can enslave you, where no opinion can diminish you, and where no circumstance can divert you from the path of reason. This is not merely mental discipline, but a transformation of being, a state of luminous awareness that is steady, profound, and unassailable. Here, at the cusp of ultimate detachment, life reveals itself in its raw elegance. You are free because you have learned to relinquish control over what is not yours, to respond rather than react, and to inhabit a mind so sovereign that chaos becomes opportunity, difficulty becomes instruction, and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The detached mind is not cold or distant, it is vibrant, present, and irresistibly alive, grounded in truth, resilient in adversity, and radiant in calm. And now, the final stage of detachment unveils its ultimate gift, serenity that is absolute, unshakable, and profoundly liberating. The mind, once entangled in desire, expectation, and fear, now moves freely like a river unhindered by debris. You understand that life's storms do not assault you, they reveal the depth of your presence. Each moment becomes a meditation, each interaction an opportunity to exercise clarity, and each thought a chance to affirm sovereignty. In this, the detached mind attains a quiet triumph over circumstance itself. True freedom is not the absence of responsibility, nor is it the avoidance of experience. It is the mastery of perception and the choice to live aligned with virtue, regardless of external chaos. You begin to see the world as a stage upon which you act, rather than a battlefield that assaults you. Misfortune and fortune alike are mere instruments, tools for reflection, growth, and the exercise of wisdom. Pain ceases to be punishment, pleasure ceases to be seduction. Both are merely teachers offering lessons to the prepared mind. As detachment deepens, you notice a transformation in the way time itself is experienced. There is no longer a rush to grasp, a fear of loss, or a longing for what has passed. Every instant is inhabited fully, with attention and awareness that are rare in the distracted multitude. The past becomes a record, not a chain; the future a potential, not a burden. The present, vibrant and exact, is where life truly unfolds. In this presence, decisions are no longer reactive but deliberate, arising naturally from the mind that has learned to observe without ensnarement. Relationships evolve under the light of detachment. You love not to possess, you connect not to control, and you forgive not because they deserve it, but because freedom demands it. The detached mind recognizes that the attachments that bind others are often illusions of the ego. By releasing these, you create space for authenticity, respect, and a presence that commands attention without force. Influence is no longer coerced, it emanates naturally from your calm authority, from a life lived without dependency on approval or outcome. Detachment also crystallizes your inner discipline. Habits, once weak and inconsistent, become expressions of deliberate choice. You act with intention, speak with purpose, and live in alignment with principles that cannot be shaken by circumstance. Every temptation is measured against reason, every impulse weighed against virtue. The mind becomes a fortress where distraction cannot enter, where clarity reigns supreme, and where peace is the natural default. The detached individual walks through life like one who has discovered an inner citadel, untouched by the storms outside. And yet, detachment does not equate to isolation. It is engagement without clinging, observation without judgment, and interaction without attachment. You participate fully in the world, not as a victim of it, but as a sovereign being whose actions are chosen, deliberate, and aligned with higher purpose. Challenges, losses, and betrayals no longer steal your equilibrium, they refine it, deepen it, and illuminate the mind's unassailable strength. Detachment is the cultivation of presence, and presence is the gateway to freedom. At the deepest level, detachment reveals the interconnectedness of all things. By relinquishing control over what is not yours, you begin to see the patterns, rhythms, and truths that govern existence. You understand that clinging is the source of suffering, that expectation is the architect of disappointment, and that mastery is born from deliberate release. The mind freed from the tyranny of attachment perceives the world as it is, dynamic, impermanent, and infinitely instructive. This is the ultimate clarity, the Stoic vision realized fully. As the journey of detachment reaches its culmination, you find a stillness that is profound and sustaining. The mind is luminous, the spirit unbound, and life, in all its complexity, becomes a canvas for conscious action. Nothing outside can disturb you because the power within is absolute. You are present, you are aware, and you are free. This is the quiet majesty of the detached mind, an inner sovereignty that no circumstance can erode, a calm that no chaos can disrupt, and a freedom that no condition can constrain. In the end, the detached mind knows that liberation is not found in fleeing life, but in embracing it fully, while remaining unensnared. It knows that true power lies not in control over others, but in mastery of self. And as you walk forward, carrying this wisdom into every interaction, every choice, and every moment, you live as the Stoics envisioned, unshaken, unbound, and eternally free. The mind that detaches from everything does not lose. It gains a universe of clarity, serenity, and unassailable strength. In this freedom, life itself becomes your teacher, your companion, and your greatest ally. And with this understanding, you step into existence fully, consciously, and profoundly liberated.